Welcome back to another AB Summer Target, episode 2 of the series of the AB Summer Target during summer. And of course, this is called Frenchies directly for the beautiful country in Thailand. And my both co-hosts of the show, Mr. Marko Larabi and Mr. Enortap, are back in the house tonight talking about what, Marko?
Today, Coach, is our second episode. We're going to be talking about, well, in the last episode, we figured out, okay, so who's leaving, who's going, and we saw that there's one roster spot in the top 6, right? This episode is which UFAs could Montreal potentially target, and should they target a UFA to fill that top 6 position, right? So that's what we're going to be focused on in this episode.
And any other option they can go in our tap of summer for the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, as we said many times, they're dealing from a position of strength when it comes to defense, and obviously they have a lot of assets there. They have still quite a bit of draft picks that they've accumulated over the next 3 years, so that's another area that they can pursue, and could be a trade or two also involved where you go after, maybe a top 6 player using those assets that we just spoke of. So the possibilities are really endless, and I know we're doing a lot of speculating, but it's a lot of fun trying to get into their mindset and figuring out which direction they will go. Again, everything we say is basically based on our opinions and what we see, but we'll see how much of it comes to fruition in the end.
And the first thing we want to talk about, honestly, is about the UFA players direction of Montreal Canadiens can targeting for the summer. First of all, let's move on to the graphic. This is the lineup for the upcoming season. Yes, you could have some kind of modification, but what do you think so far, what we got on the board?
Yes, so far it's looking very much with coincides with what I have here as well. I think we saw quite a bit of success this year and the emergence of that first line. If we were able to get somebody that could either surpass any one of those, that would just speak volumes to how much more improved our team will be. But I think for now, they've made great strides. So I would agree with that Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky line. The second line, obviously with Dach coming back from his injury, makes total sense to have him there. And you have Newhook alongside with him. Makes sense as well because you have players that can play either the wing or center. It makes it that much more important in situations for faceoffs. And in the blank spot, that could be either a trade or a UFA, or if we're really lucky and we draw the number 1 pick overall this year, we could see somebody like Celebrini in that spot. So I kind of like that blank for now. Third line is pretty sound as well. Roy, Dvorak, and Gallagher. Now, I had it a little bit different. I had sort of either Armia instead of Gallagher on the third line on the right wing, and I have Dvorak there, but I figure because he's a free agent at trade deadline time, his contract's up, there is the possibility that we could see somebody like Beck slide into that spot if he does get traded. Otherwise, I foresee him at center as well for the rest of the year. And that last line is Evans. I concurred with as well, Coach and Marko. The two that I have a slightly different. I have Anderson slated that he won't be in, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later on. That I have Gallagher in that spot on the right. I have Raphael Harvey-Pinard as the left wing on that one.
What we did for this show is looking about the UFA and NHL. Tier 1, and again, we have 3 tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and how it was categorized is about the salary cap. Like, I expect maybe more money for the top 4 players over there compared to tier 2 and tier 3. Sankos, Guanzel, Reinhardt, Marchessault, Monahan, Toffoli, Duchesne, Teravainen, Bertuzzi, DeBrusque, tier 3, Duclair, Stephenson, Manta, and Perron. And of course, you have other UFA and NHL. Marko, I give you the first opportunity.
Well, thanks for the first opportunity, Coach. I wish I had this kind of money to spend in in real life, but unfortunately, that's not the case. But my ideal scenario is not to sign a UFA. Like, I think it would be better for Montreal to trade. But let's say, trading is not easy, right? Like, you need a partner. Hughes has kind of spoiled us a little bit, like just being able to put together these deals for Newhook and Dach, but it's not easy, right? Like, you have to find the right partner. they have to have, the right kind of asset that you want, and you have to have the assets that they want. So it's tricky. So if Montreal finds themselves in a position where they can't do that and they have to sign a UFA, first of all, I don't think they have the cap room to sign anybody in tier one, to be honest. Like they would really have to do gymnastics, I think, to make that fit. And I think it ties up, I think, what they would want to do in the future. And we've heard kind of Ken Hughes talk about, he used an example for a right-handed defenseman, saying, if we want to sign a veteran right-handed defenseman, I don't mind doing that. I just don't want to block another prospect coming out. And as we know, they're going to be drafting probably a pretty good player here in 2024 draft, right? So I don't think they want to lock up that spot with a Reinhardt or even a Gensel at 4 or 5 years. So for me, I look more for players in that tier 2 or tier 3, somebody that you can bring in for a year or two, just like I said, just to add a little bit more balance to the lineup, in that, add somebody to that top 6. I prefer probably a right-handed shot if possible, because, I think with Newhook and Dach playing together. So looking at what's here, I think Perron is an interesting option for sure. Like, I think, what do we know, like, guys? Like, I think it's going to be about like 4.5 million in cap space that Montreal is going to have to play with. So I think you can afford to kind of throw that kind of money at a Perron. But again, like, I also like the idea of having a Stevenson there too, right? Because having Montreal and Kent Hughes love having guys that can play multiple positions. So having Stevenson, being able to take faceoffs. We know Dach is still developing his face-off game. So and then you also have Newhook on that same line that could take face-offs. So a lot of versatility with somebody like Stevenson. But you want to add goal scoring, and Stevenson, looking at kind of these guys quickly here on Cap Friendly, Coach. The one, and we're gonna like this for because he's from Montreal, right? But Duclair is probably the best goal scorer in that like tier 2 or tier 3, right? He had like 24 goals last year. He's got a lot of speed. He's got size. I think he probably would be comfortable playing on the right wing as well too. And Newhook could probably play on the right wings. You might have to have 2 left-handed shots on that second line. If it was me, and you're not able to get the trade that you want, I'm leaning more towards like a player like Duclair. I think you can get him for a year or two under $4 million. He might be really excited to play in that market. I think the fans would be excited to see that. And like I said, he has the potential to score between 20 and 30 goals. He has a lot of speed. And with the coaching staff, with Martin Saint-Louis and that environment, I suspect, like, look at the years that he had when he was in Ottawa, playing pretty close to home. He had some really strong years playing there, right? So looking at these, like, I would stay away from Mantha. I think we want some speed, Coach. Like, size is important, but so I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards Duclair, but I wouldn't hate Stevenson, and I could live with Perron too.
Great comments. And for you, Enortap, do you think they will sign one? Do you think you're not going to targeting one? What do you feel about that?
I personally do believe that they will target one UFA. I wholeheartedly agree with Marko's assessment. I think, I mean, who wouldn't want, say, a Reinhardt or a Marchessault on the team? But what they're going to command at their age, they're also not looking probably for, like a 2 or 3 year contract. They're looking for their last contract before they retire. I think that entire first group, Stamkos included, is outside of our reach. The second tier is pretty much a little bit more in line with what we could afford, but I would go to that third. The only problem I see with both Mantha and Duclair is health. They both bring a certain amount of speed, which is a good part of the game that Montreal has been striving to improve on. But I see what you're saying, Marko, about Stevenson, that you want more goal scoring. But I like the fact that he adds very much a utility kind of guy. You can put him in different situations, and he gives you quite a bit to go with. I think he's pretty good in clutch situations. He tends to get big goals when the time is needed, and he doesn't seem to shy away from playoff style hockey when it comes to that. So I would probably target somebody like Stevenson to fit the money model that they have, the salary that's left, and the fact that and so that kind of fits into what we're trying to achieve in terms of not having everybody at the same age group, but having somebody that can come in and offer some experience, kind of like what we had with Monahan before he was traded, and sort of come in, offer experience from many perspectives, including being a Stanley Cup champion, and also lead by example, which is critical. And I think he's a very good character player. We talk about one of the first things we did in Montreal was to try to create that the proper atmosphere, the proper climate, and I think that we've done very well so far with that. And somebody like Stevenson, is not going to disrupt it. If anything, he'll add to it. So that's probably the direction I would head.
On the percentage that we finish the show for today, what do you think the Montreal Canadiens are going to have a UFA in 2024?
Again, it's hard to tell, right? Like I said, Ken Hughes has such a great track record of being able to put together these deals, right? I have a lot of faith that he's going to go to the draft and be able to concoct some magic spell of his to be able to go and find another great young pro, that fits into the kind of like window that Montreal has with Suzuki and Caulfield and Slav and all that. So I have faith that he's going to be able to do that, but it's like I said, it's not easy. It's not easy. And if you look at the opportunities out there, there's maybe 5 or 6 players out there, and we'll get into that on our next episode about kind of what those targets might be. But since I think it's going to be harder for him to do that, I'd probably say it's somewhere around maybe 70%. I would say that they're going to have to go out and sign a UFA if they want to add a little bit more balance to their lineup, because I just think it's going to be a little bit harder for him to pull off that deal, because GMs, have seen him do these deals before and they're kind of seeing him coming. And I just don't, again, you kind of need the stars to align perfectly for it to happen, right? So I'll say 70% coach, 70% chance that they might have to resort to signing a UFA instead of going for a trade.
Enortap?
Yeah, the trade route is always a lot dicier with the UFA, as long as they're pleased, obviously, with the agent as well as the player in terms of the contract length and the money that they're seeking. That's always an easier buy to go with. I would put it at a high amount as well. I personally just believe there'll be one UFA player signed this year. And I'm going to go outside the box here. I don't believe it'll be at the forward position, and I can explain that in the following episodes. But I think it'll be on defense, and I'll clarify that later. But I'm thinking more. If anything, it'll probably come from what it ensues here with the draft. And again, if they're lucky to get either number 1, 2, and I mean number 3 spot is a very, very small percentage of that one. But if they can get number 1 or 2 and move up from 5, that would solve a lot of problems for Montreal in a quick fashion.
Can you imagine the Montreal fan base if Ken Hughes signs a free agent defenseman with all the defense prospects they have? I'd be very curious
Marko,
to see.
but there's that'll open up and again, I'll explain it later, but it'll open up the possibilities for greater trades and achieving that top 6 forward either through that direction later on. And think of where we have most of our assets. We can deal from the defensive aspect. And what are we lacking at defense? We're lacking some more experience. And we don't know what's going to happen with Savard. He's going to be a UFA at the end of next year as well. And I mean, Matheson had a great year, and I think he'll continue to stay here. You do need a little bit more experience, especially on the right-hand side, and that's what I was.
This is the first episode of the Habs Summer Target. It was great to be with both of you tonight and talking about the UFA players target for the Montreal Canadiens during summer 2024. During the next couple of weeks, we're going to have fun subject for trade rumor, or the NHL draft pick for the 2024. It's coming. And don't forget, May 7, we're going to be live with Enortap and Marko talking about the NHL draft lottery. And we'll see if Montreal a little bit more lucky this year be their pick for 2024. So that's it. That's all. Thanks again, Enortap and Marko. I can wait to see you for the next show of the Habs Summer Target. Have a great one, everybody.